We're in the Acadian Museum here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's Henderson over here. We're going down the levee here. Going up on a levee. We're gonna head down to Whiskey Road.
In my mouth and chewing it and swallowing it all seems completely overwhelming and horrifying to me.
And what have you tried in terms of treatment and what it seems to be working, whatever it is you're trying now?
I have had a combination of medication and psychotherapy.
That's funny.
Not the real murders.
He can't do it. He's one of the best accordions we got.
Yeah.
He can't sing anyway. Yeah, a lot of accordion players, but he can't sing.
still think you can sing?
Can't understand what he's saying, but. What he can say.
Goes all the way into the Gulf of Mexico through the town of Morgan City. In lengthwise, you're looking at 120 miles in length by 23 miles wide at the widest part of the basin. Out here we got in between 840,000 acres of swampland to 1 million acres of swampland. And the way we get our water out here each spring is when the snow and ice starts melting from the northern states, and from the rainfall we get through the Mississippi River Valley and the Red River Valley. We have a runoff of 27 states that push water on us every spring on here. And we have to distribute this water to the Gulf of Mexico. This is done by the levee system we have set up throughout the state of Louisiana by the Corps of Engineers and local government. This area, mostly local government. It's all controlled at the water level. Right now it's about 3 feet higher than normal for this time of the year, due to the heavy rains we had last month. This is all fresh water, no brackish water, no salt water. All fresh water. While we're traveling right here in the channel, we're traveling about 17 feet of water. On your left-hand side, and go down here where the trees are at and where the stumps are at, right at 9 feet of water at this time of season. The basin starts in Simsport, Louisiana, goes all the way into the Gulf of Mexico through the town of Morgan City. 120 miles in length by 23 miles wide at the widest part of the basin. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Very good.
When is your high water?
The reason why they use it to fish with is because there's not a lot of wax in their feathers and there's not a lot of oil in their feathers, and they can dive deep for a long period of time to find the fish. What they actually do to these birds is that they'll put a ring around their neck so they can't swallow the fish, and also tie a string to their neck to send them down and get the fish.
Yeah.
Once they get the fish, they pull it back up.
We've seen that in China. It's an incredible sight.
We also got the anhingas, which belongs to the same family of birds. The Karma's got the curved beak, the anhinga's got the straight beak, but they use both birds to fish with in the Orient. The nickname for the cormorant, water turkey. The nickname for the anhinga, snake bird. We got another name for it, but I won't mention it today. The way we used to live out here, we built our houses on floating logs, somewhat like a town star around. And all these people back then were all commercial fishermen, fur trappers, and hunters. They made their living strictly from the basin, at fishing, hunting, and trapping before the flood of 1927. Brown grasslands, about 600 yards away to 1,200 yards away. These are duck blinds. We're one of the same flyaway zone on here, the Mississippi Flyway Zone. We have ducks out of those during the winter months. It's all ducks that migrate from Canada and the northern states we have out here. Not too many geese down here, mostly ducks. The geese always stay west of Lafayette, Louisiana, in the rice paddies or in the marsh areas of Louisiana where they have a different food supply. Out here it's mostly ducks. We camouflage them real good before the duck hunting season starts, and we have ducks on them. We call them duck blinds. Look in the stump area out there, you see them.
Yeah.
Little grass huts out there.
Yeah.
Look like big bales of hay. Call them duck blinds. We only shoot the blind ducks that come by. On the tree. This is an air plant which lives off the humidity there is in the air and also the dust there is in the air. It only chooses a tree that has a long life down south, like a live oak tree, bald cypress trees, or pecan trees. Now this belongs to the pineapple family. It's a subtropical pineapple family.
How deep does it get? Is that high water mark on those trees here?
Yeah, high water mark.
Okay.
It can get up to about 7 to 8 feet higher when you get there right now.
On a big flood.
That's how high it was this year so far.
Okay.
But it went down the last couple of weeks. But now it's on a stand. It's not rising or dropping right now.
I see.
We call it a stand.
Can get up to a height of 9 feet up in some of the remote parts of the basin. Water hyacinths brought in from
Species of
Japan.
fish out here. I'll be explaining to you about the fish a little bit later on, and I'll be explaining to you about the alligators as well. Birds you'll be seeing around the basin out there are egrets. We got different sitting on the log. Y'all spotted them?
Yeah.
They were brought into this country by Mr. McElhaney, the one who owns the basket company in Avery Island, Louisiana. He was an animal lover. They come from Argentina, South America. It's a water rope.
They're huge.
In some parts of Louisiana, you got 4,000 per square mile. They're a nuisance. It's a water road. They eat vegetation on them. They serve them in restaurants down in Louisiana as well.
Are there any beaver here?
Beavers, otters, minks, nutrias, and muskrats, raccoons. Stuff like that also. Cost of $118 million. This is the second longest bridge crossing waterways in the world. And the pilings go down as far as 180 feet down and 225 feet down. That's the distance we have to go to hit hard bottom. No rock bottom, just hard sand. Now this is the second longest bridge crossing waterways in the world. And the longest is the causeway of the Lake Pontchartrain in the New Orleans area. That's the second. Now, if you notice your light brown markings on the pillars of the bridge out here, these are your water markings of the spring months. That's how high our waters are getting in the spring months. Normally, they only get about 3.5 feet high than it is normal. But they can get up to 7 feet to 8 feet high.
How long is this bridge supposed to last? Did they say?
I'd say about 3 years by the end of the summer like this. We first started drilling over waterways out here in 1904. Over land areas, 1902, but over waterways, 1904. The first people to drill out here is Standard Oil. That's how big they're out here.
What's it carrying, you know? What are they carrying?
Looks like your map.
Dog legs. And our frogs at the base of it here, they can weigh up to 2.5 pounds. They get pretty big.
This one?
Yes.
No. Yeah?
Yes.
You want to hold it.
Isn't he nice? Put it on the back of his hand. He'll try to grab it like that.
In Texas, they get 14 pounds. Can you believe that? Great blue here.
Yeah. We have those in Tennessee now. Didn't used to.
The mother's in the nest. They're called sea eagles. Nickname sea eagles. Ospreys do. 100 years old here compared to the California redwood and the teak of Italy. But like I said, this is the second generation. You still got a lot of old ones left in the basin. In Ramla, Louisiana, and Stevensville, Louisiana, and Morgan City. You got a lot of virgin cypress left. They get real big. The base about 25 feet. One tree can frame up a 2-bedroom house. One tree. 15 pounds and your smallmouth's up to 5 pounds. They won't get much bigger because the water fluctuates too much during the year for your bass in this area. We also,
Do the stripers find their way to the ocean from back?
yeah, they do. Main river.
Okay, we're in Okaloosa.
Those kinds of things are much harder to analyze.
190, just got off of
About to change.
I-49. We're headed for
A large
Eunice.
employer starts publishing.
Let's see.
Yeah, rice paddies here. And they double for, sometimes for crayfish farming.
A group of people who never served a day overseas in their life, or a guy who served his country honorably and has 3 Purple Hearts and a Silver Star on the battlefields of Vietnam.
Dean says he'll use his new organization, Democracy for America, to support Kerry and
Rice
other
paddies,
Democratic candidates at all levels.
before that was some
Cable TV companies are getting another hard eye from Congress. Some senators say they'll consider new regulations unless the industry does something about soaring
Sweet
prices
potatoes,
and
large
gives customers
sack,
more
$9.
choice. Appearance fee. I'm Craig Smith, AP Network News.
I wonder if these are the crayfish farms.
Dropped down about a foot.
Or are they the rice paddies?
Could be either, I guess. I would do with terracing, it's more likely to be rice paddies. Let's see if this is a rice mill up here. Check and see if this is a rice plant. Bet it is. Hard to say. Want to put it back down?
That's fine. It's really better up, filtered.
Think so?
So pretty. across the Mississippi now. From Louisiana to Mississippi.
There it is down there.
Yeah. Across the mighty Mississippi. There's Natchez down there. Oh, it's a big river. Okay, we're in historic Natchez, Mississippi. Spent the night here last night. Spring pilgrimages are going on to the houses here. But we'll probably just go see more. Is that a dogwood blooming?
Yep, that is a pink and a white.
Okay.
Governors. That mama's miles. We were there. We were past that place.
Yeah, it should be around here because that's where that circle is we saw up on the hill. We saw this way up on the hill, lit up last night in a circle.
Visitor Center parking second.
Conflict was made worse by the fact that the Natchez considered themselves to be superior to the French. The French considered themselves to be superior to the Natchez. But there were also problems posed by the English agents.
So you're waiting for our bus tour of Natchez. We're up in a colonnade area. That's the bridge we came over last night from Louisiana across the Mississippi. There's our bus coming, I bet.
This one is not occupied. It is never for tourists. It's got more columns in the rear than the front. That was the style back then. This is the rear. Get to the right. Looked like it should have been the front. Now look to the right in the front. That columns on that building is solid brick with a cement or stucco overlay. That baluster is the cross in the wall sticks. And that shade of blue in the roof is supposed to keep dirt dogs and birds away. Some call them mud daubers. But don't get your blue paint red, because the lady told me her neighbors got the blue at our home and the pigeons get right on comment. Now coming to the river, Captain Leathers lost that race. Coming to the right, it's going to be... That was built by Frederick Stettner, Belfast Island, and it's open for tourists. It's owned and operated by the Garden Club. Now the fence in the tree is original to the property. The property takes up a block on all sides, and that building is solid brick with a cement overlay. We know circumstances. They planted 19 of those trees when they built the home, and 17 is still alive. Mr. Stanton.
Wait till they get a green light on it.
That's what the preachers go all around the building. I originally set out about 43 acres of ground. That's a bed and breakfast. Slave quarters and kitchen is turned into guest quarters, and that's over for tourists. There's a magnolia tree out back that's over 250 years old. That was home when the Spanish government went through the home and looked at those stairs, trying to figure out how to get them to stand freely and unsupported. But it says so far nobody figured it out yet. Here's a photo of those stairs. They're free if you want them. They're free. They said those ladies was two very strong-willed ladies. They ran them away and no one got anything out of the home, not even a flower bush off the property. They both passed in early 1900 place. They carried fresh fruit, vegetables, and homemade items. Nice restaurant inside. But back in the 70s, the movie star George Hamilton bought that for his mother.
Magnolia Hall.
Before you got down there, you heard some sounds of curdling blood, and you were glad to go back up the hill and get with the rest of the guy. But that was a part of the river.
David Crockett adventures under the hill.
Mike Fink was a riverboat man that was the cop of the walk under the hill for so long. He had a one-day fight with David Crockett. David Crockett came down to Natchez just looking for a little adventure, and he wound up tying in with Mike Fink, and they say they fought for about 24 hours before calling it a draw. And there's a bar at the Elks Club in Natchez to this day that came from the swimming under the hill, and everyone says that one of the chinks in that bar was made by David Crockett with his knife.
Under the hill, those stories. The identical. But it got to be something too. Standing latest night's sleep you've ever had in your life. Go to work. And 2 weeks after my wife and I had lost him, he blundered and actually sleep. That's one of the benefits. It's reported seen is well, actually I've got a picture that I took up a noise to myself with a flash before I did the bill, but she shows up on the door. Some people in California years ago. But anyway, she has a long white dress on, pretty long black brunette.
Jim Bowie moved to the big city, Natchez, to make his fortune, which he did. Very good in dealing with cash.
Natchez, the very year before the war started, and wrote a book about it. And in it he recorded his travels with a rude countryman.
Okay.
That's the whole Mississippi there, Wisconsin, Minnesota.
Now go slower so I can get on the video too. Pretty neat.
When I was young, to have friends whose parents liked to go out on the river.
That's the headwaters right there. Minnesota.
There were lots of people that had never actually been on it in a boat, but to get out and
down through.
Okay.
Right out in the middle of the river, just floating down, looking up at the bluffs of Natchez, feeling the greatness of that river. It's just an extraordinary feeling, and it's something that I think comes to anyone that gets out on it, regardless of amazing.
That's Memphis.
Watching their reactions just to lay up on the bow of the boat as we loaded up from the Word Bridge, under the bridge, and then on up north of Natchez, and then
Louisiana.
commonly called the Chute.
Louisiana on both sides of the river there.
With what is
there down to
was a cutoff.
The Delta.
Natchez is here, what it is, because of the Mississippi River. It was always the river.
I have a Shangri-La place. It's down on the bluff, and looking up, you see the whole panoramic view of the river.
I love to go to the river and just watch the sun go down. I love to throw rocks in the river and just kind of wonder where's that rock gonna end up.
You can stand on the bluff at Natchez and look to the north and know you can go all the way to Minnesota. Look to the left, you can go all over the world.
As far back as memory goes, the river is a silver thread tying place to place, people to people.
Once you get beyond sight of the bluffs of Natchez, then the river essentially looks no different than it would have looked to LaSalle when he came down 300 years ago.
The Natchez Indians were the last major Indian group to occupy this area before Europeans came in and took over. They used the Mississippi River as a way to get from one place to another and to carry on trade and exchange information.
Above all else, the Natchez story is a story about people. People in the past and people today.
The people of Natchez are just wonderful. The Natchez people, I think, do have a rather special quality.
I don't think of Natchez as a place that fences in its people or fences out other people.
Natchez has always been sort of a free community to some degree, and people were not necessarily inhibited from being what they could be.
Action of the balloons in the river.
Natchez and the river. The story lives on.
Okay, we're going to Natchez under the hill here.
To pledge to river parade.
And to the riverboat.
It's a really good challenge. I know a lot of the musicians in the union are already members and they have the union.
We came over that bridge last night from Louisiana, across the Mississippi.
Member unions around like GM. If anybody's out there listening in GM wants to
I guess it'd be fun someday to do one of these riverboat cruises.
The American Federations of Musicians has challenged all other labor unions to call in and pledge. And we have another renewal here from Kermit Colby, who is our interim music director. And he's pledging in support of our regional Sunday broadcast on Friday afternoons.
Coming up at 1.
Right. And Kevin, this is for you. Speaking from experience, nothing's better than being in front of the SSO. You can borrow my baton, but you'll have to get your own tails.
He's here, he's with the symphony, and he does so many other things.
Is this the casino? We're on Canal Street in Natchez.
I don't know.
It's the indicator. Canal Street.
1798. Must be at the same age as the...
Two little shotgun houses.
Right.
This house is the one that has more columns on the back than on the front. I'm amazed that the columns are all out of brick with stucco over them. That to me is kind of surprising. I kind of thought they were wood. Here's Stanton Hall.
going back down High Street.
By the National Park Service.
Over there.
Because he lives there.
Just full of wisteria. Perfectly beautiful. It's hard to videotape because it sort of turns to black silhouette when you move back. We're here at Melrose. It's run by the National Park Service. We're going to take a tour.
They called absentee land ownership, simply meaning they did not live on their plantations. The McMurray family who built this house in the 1840s owned 5 plantations. Those were located in southern Mississippi, a little bit farther down the river from us. 2 in southern Louisiana and 1 up in Arkansas. What you have in the 1820s is gentlemen coming down here from the north. Some of them are lawyers by trade, so financially they can take care of themselves. They'll get down here, they'll start practicing law, then they'll start investing heavily in the cotton crop. So they're going to invest heavily in slaves. Cotton and slavery were driving economic forces here in Natchez beginning in the early 1800s all the way up until the Civil War. Mostly is form and function. How the family used the house day in and day out, and what the architect did while building the house to ensure some comfort for the family. There were 25 slaves on this estate for 4 people. Out of those 25, 10 are relegated to house duties. The other 15 are going to be working back here in the formal gardens or the orchards, or behind the house in the carriage house or in the stables. One of the best examples of form and function occurs right outside here, where the architect built the house, where he placed it. It sits on the highest point of the property. He also sets a house on an east-west axis, facing directly west. What is directly west of us?
River.
Mississippi River. Most of the homes in Natchez face the river to get the breeze to cool those homes down.
1840 for that.
If you take a look at the house, this is a Greek Revival style house. One of the characteristics of Greek Revival is right above us, the triangle at the top. If you're coming in the house to meet the McMurrays, one of the 2 slave butlers would have welcomed you into the house and they would have shown you into the drawing room. That's where you're going to wait on the McMurrays. You folks can go ahead and step in there and I'll speak behind you. No, none of the, there's no original wallpaper or no original carpet in the house. It's all what we call period. This room's for one purpose only, and that's to impress. This is where they're going to spend their money to show off their wealth. A unique furnishing in this room is to the rear of the room in the left-hand corner. That's called a swivel sofa. Those end chairs are actually on swivels. That middle ottoman has a green little spin tab on the top of it. You can spin that tab off, and you can spin on the tabletop directly behind it where the lamp is sitting. Gentlemen would sit down in those chairs, and they would have to straddle that, and they play checkers or cards. Women couldn't sit in the chairs because their dresses wouldn't fit. They're going to sit in the chairs right in front of you with no arms. In this room, as well as other rooms throughout the house, you're going to notice furnishings on casters. Therefore, they can be wheeled around to create larger spaces. This room was formerly used in January of 1856. Mary Elizabeth, the daughter, she was married in this room. She married the boy next door from Linden, Farrar Connor. That's her wedding dress there to your right. Unique thing about hers.
The Melrose silver pattern.
The only reproduction wallpaper in the house, I told you it was all was period except for this room. This is reproduction original wallpaper. We have a sample of it, that's how we know. They actually had gold leaf engraved in the wallpaper. All the other, both ends. Across the hallway is the formal dining room. Above the dining room table is the large mahogany punka, or the shoe fly. Carved here in Natchez for the family. There would be a slate child pulling.
What do you call the thing on top there?
It's called a shoe fly. It's technical terms called a punka. They had oilcloth in the front and back hallways because that's your heavy traffic areas. And as you see today, they had wall-to-wall carpets in the. They would use oilcloth.
The table is set for dessert. Their dessert plates.
Yeah, so times have changed, yeah.
But the Park Service,
We bought it.
was it given empty? Or
No.
No.
Actually, you guys bought it, so.
Yeah.
It's yours too. No, the great thing about this house, and one of the reasons the Park Service bought the house is, almost every time it's been sold lock, stock, and barrel, furnishings included. And another reason that we purchased it was because of the great documentation that we have from family members. So, that kind of helps us. We don't have to go on a, chase finding things. And so it certainly helps us with our research methods and our historians and curators and things like that.
Original oilcloth.
One of the best examples of form and function inside the house occur in this room. The architect built this house so all these doors are in line, therefore the breeze can get in, it's not hindered. Take a look above us, 16-foot high ceilings, hot air rises. If you haven't already noticed, the rooms on this side of the house are connected by pocket doors or sliding doors, obviously, to get the breeze. This room right up here is the family parlor. You can go ahead and step in there.
That's a Canterbury.
Well, this was just a back hall. This was called the back hall. There to your left is a circa 1850 box grand piano. That is not their original piano. They actually had a full-size grand piano. Their piano was considered a luxury, so the state of Mississippi put a luxury tax on it. That's Mary Elizabeth on top there. She was the piano player of the family. The family did spend a lot of time in this room. It was just,
This would be the library.
yeah, actually, you're going to see that throughout the whole house. There's no paintings in the whole house. One of the reasons is because a lot of the paintings that we have are 20th century paintings. We got from the California, so we don't put those back up. We are getting 3 paintings reproduced. Actually, the ones get ready to hang back up. Those are of Mrs. McMurrin, and that's going to go right up there. The other 2 are of John C. Calhoun and Zachary Taylor. Those are going to go in the study. So, and we know that those are. McMurrin was a lawyer. In those days, lawyers did not go to school. They learned by clerking in law offices. And they take the bar exam and state they're going to practice in it. So he actually had to read these books and use furnishings. Very simply furnished. The reason being is guests do not come upstairs. This is where the family lives. So there's nothing they need to show off up here. So, we know the grandchildren are out here playing on the floor. So, we're going to make our way through the room. We're going to start in the master bedroom right here. We have the Greek revival. Things are square, open. Especially down here in the south. It's nice to have these breezes coming in and cooling this place down. Each bedroom is done in a particular wood pattern. The master bedroom is done in walnut. Here's a picture of the McMurns on the small desk to her left. There's her attic, collects the rainwater. Those pipes lead to one room only. That's accessible by that door right behind us and on the other side of the bed. Mrs. McMurn did have her own water closet. She might have been a little bit stingy because there are still chamber pots in all these bedrooms. That's very early for a water closet in America. You really don't see those connected to the mother's room because all the women
Same
did
carpets
the
in
birthing
Appomattox
back then.
Schoolhouse.
Mr. McMurn's bookcases.
They were beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, they were locally made by a cabinet maker. This is John Jr.'s room, which is done in mahogany. There's a picture of John and his two girls on that small desk to your right. If you take a look at the wallpaper, it has roses and lace in it. Pretty feminine for a boy's room. Mrs. McMurn had wallpaper roses and lace put up to welcome her new daughter-in-law, Alice, to the family. Because John and Alice were married in Maryland in the fall of 1856. Mr. and Mrs. McMurn could not attend the wedding. They were on their plantations taking care of some business. The newlyweds lived in this room for...
Is there only one stairway?
Only one. Well, there's one on the outside.
Oh,
but only one on the inside. The last room, not long after that, one of her children died in that room. Her child died of dysentery.
Mary Elizabeth died at 29 in this room of meningitis.
Any questions at all about the bedrooms? That was Mary Elizabeth's children's room.
Kids never get slept in.
Oh, now?
Yeah.
Oh, no. No, the last people to live in here was the Callan family in 1988. That's the 20th century bathroom right there. There's still a bathroom. Well, in 1865, the McMurns will have to sell the house. Because Mary Elizabeth is dead, and during the Civil War, John and Alice have moved back to Maryland, where she was from. Their thinking is, well, we're going to sell the house to get out of debt, and then we're going to move back up to, or we're going to move to Maryland to be with John and Alice and live out the rest of our days. So the furnishings inside the house itself, in 132 acres, is assessed at $50,000. Mr. McMurn owes George Davis, a lawyer here in town, $12,000 on a business deal. They take that off the price of the house, that gives you $38,000. Mrs. Davis comes in, buys everything lock, stock, and barrel for $38,000. So the McMurns moved back to Woodlands, where Mrs. McMurn was raised. Before they get ready to move north, Mr. McMurn goes down to New Orleans to take care of some business. He's coming back on a steamboat. It explodes. He'll die 3 days later. So Mrs. McMurn does not move north. She lives out the rest of her days in Woodlands. She'll die there in 1890. Woodlands will be around until 1930s. At that time, it burns down. So, unfortunately, that's a tragic end to a somewhat pretty good family. In the middle, she marries a guy back here in a horse and buggy, Dr. Kelly. He's originally from New York. This house will stay in the Kelly family until 1975. The Davis family was quite wealthy. He used to like to lend money at 10% interest. That was high for those days, okay? And if you weren't there to pay, well, guess what? He was there to foreclose. He was a shark. He was...
Simon agreed.
He was, Simon. He was at that. Besides owning Melrose, they never were slaves. They worked for the Davises in these other homes. The best thing they did was they kept the vandals out. People were trying to break into this house to steal the furnishings. And they did a very good job. The other pictures are of the house in the early 1900s. Here's an early picture of Mrs. Kelly with children. And this is a later picture of Mrs. Kelly. This was taken in the early 1930s. Those gentlemen are from the Gorman Silver Company. They're giving Mrs. Kelly an 8-piece silver set, a Melrose silver. The larger sets go into the garden club. You see the gentleman has his hand on the swivel sofa that we saw downstairs. Called Arlington, just right over here on the other side of Monmouth. A year ago, last September, it caught on fire. The Anwar was in the attic. The attic burned. Everything in the attic was destroyed. The second floor burned. And they got there in time enough to save the first floor, save a lot of the books in the study. It's owned by a doctor, like a lot of these places. He doesn't live here. It was a fuse box one Sunday morning. That Anwar that was in that house that got destroyed, that was from this house, was valued alone at $1 million. So maybe that'll justify, help you sleep tonight. Right above me and attached to the house are those slave bells. How many house slaves were there?
25.
20.
No.
Oh.
10.
10.
The 10 house slaves could hear those bells because they're going to live in the top of the 2 dependencies right here behind us. So they're not going to be very far away. The one on the left, on the first floor where you folks buy your tickets, was a kitchen. Actually, that kitchen was used all the way up until 1988. The one on the right housed the dairy and laundry facilities.
So they never put a modern kitchen in there? I mean, that was a modern kitchen.
That was a modern
kitchen. But they never moved it into the house. They would,
They just kept it. To the cellar as well as a storm door. That's the only entrance to the cellar. There's no inside entrance. Cellar's the full size of the house. Divided into rooms with doors that lock, so they can't lock up things. You're going to keep your perishables down there. Also a slave bell and a fireplace in the cellar. Good possibility one of the house butlers lived in the cellar.
That raised right there. Emerald Mound. Second largest temple mound in the United States. This is probably the Trace Road here that crossed on the way. Get back on the Natchez Trace.
Stop.
That's okay. Not too different from the Smoky Mountains, is it? Right here. We're on the Natchez Trace. Very pretty and green. We're just before turning off to go over to the Vicksburg battlefields. I want to give us a little bit of idea of, remember, that it's like on the Trace. Dogwoods blooming. Trees are just beginning to come out. Redbud, dogwoods, and... Okay, we're getting off here on 61 to go over to Vicksburg. Look at the wisteria, it's just covered these trees. Welcome to Port Gibson. Some sort of academy there. This is Port Gibson.
There it is, so square. Bed and breakfast.
Nice old mansions here.
And B,
we're on the
that's not how
scenic
life
drive
works
in
out.
Vicksburg.
If I went out with the cheerleader, a cheerleader, and she said she loved me, well, then my whole life
That's a beautiful wisteria.
it wouldn't have occurred because those kind of things in my world never occurred.
Follow those little red signs.
Speaking with Terry Gross in 2000.
And it was basically a letter
letter to Paul Feig and I saying, please don't think you made any mistakes and do not learn anything from this situation. Make no adjustments in your future. About a 5-year-old man. And so we thought it would go through the roof. We thought, you know, we're up against cops on Saturday night. How can we not all the time? This show is being made right now.
It's the tallest hill we've been on since we left Tennessee.
Showings at the Museum of Broadcasting. It's not really being made for NBC. And that turned out to be true. And a year later, they ran it on the Fox Family Channel. A time of a lot of drama in my family, and I had to find something to East Side Comedy.
Big house and big dog world.
I remember I used to say to the audience, I don't know how to handle hecklers, so I like to practice, so if anyone would like to heckle, please do it now. And then the entire audience would start screaming and cursing at me. And
this on the right.
So people would just say, you want to write jokes for me? And I was looking for someone to put 2 cameras on you and make out. And they were very awkward and uncomfortable, which they...
Good, and river down there.
A little victorious to see the kid who really thinks of himself as a geek and is really kind of awkward and not.
When their captain shouted to the pillagers, someone fired at him, and the officer shot the leader of the looters from his horse and screamed at Cole, "We want some of them goods." You can't have over the primitive roads of the region. Their chances of eventual escape were not.
Union Army, May 20th. We slept on our arms, making cautious advances toward the works of the Union, step by step. But the task was difficult and dangerous. Bullets were flying over our heads. It was quite common. Always in here, the rattle of the enemy's gun from early dawn to dawn.
It's what I've always believed, that the great popular heart is not now and never has been in this war. It was a revolution of the politicians, not the people.
Trenches are here.
Davis launched upon a long and solemn review of the South's plight, insisting that an army could be rallied to fight in the Vance was impressed by the president's determination, but was relieved when Breckinridge broke the sad silence that followed. Don't think we are dealing candidly with him. Our hopes of accomplishing what you set forth are so remote and uncertain. About this time, a courier tracked down the fleeing Davis with a telegraphed appeal from Concord, where the president and 9 others
down 61 to go over to Vicksburg. Look at the wisteria, it's just covered these trees. Welcome to Port Gibson. Some sort of academy there. This is Port Gibson.
There it is, Oak Square. Bed and breakfast.
Nice old mansions here.
And B,
Okay, well,
that's not how life works out.
in Vicksburg.
If I went out with the cheerleader, head cheerleader, and she said she loved me, well, then my whole life.
Lots of beautiful wisteria.
It wouldn't have occurred because those kind of things, in my world, never occurred.
Follow those little red signs.
Speaking with Terry Gross in 2000.
And it was basically a letter to Paul Feig and I saying, please don't think you made any mistakes and do not learn anything from this situation. Make no adjustments in your future. About a 5-year-old man. And so he thought it would go through the roof. We thought, you know, we're up against cops on Saturday night. How can we not all the time? This show is being made right now.
It's the tallest hill we've been on since we left Tennessee.
Showings at the Museum of Broadcasting. It's not really being made for NBC. And that turned out to be true. And a year later, they ran it on the Fox Family Channel. A time of a lot of drama in my family, and I had to find something to Eastside Comedy
Big house and big dog well.
I remember I used to say to the audience, I don't know how to handle hecklers, so I like to practice, so if anyone would like to heckle, please do it now. And then the entire audience was just like screaming and cursing at me.
Get this on the right.
So people would just say, you want to write jokes for me? And I was looking for someone who could keep cameras on you and make out. And they were very awkward and uncomfortable, which
There's a river down there.
Victorious to see the kid who really thinks of himself as a geek and is really kind of awkward and not.
When their captain shouted to the pillagers, someone fired at him, and the officer shot the leader of the looters from his women screamed at Cole, "We want some of them goods." You can't have over the primitive roads of the region. Their chances of eventual escape were not.
Union Army, May 20th. We slept on our arms, making cautious advances toward the woods of the Union, step by step. The path was difficult and dangerous. Bullets were flying over our heads. It was quite common. Always would hear the rattle of the enemy's gun from early dawn to dawn.
That's what I've always believed, that the great popular heart is not now and never has been in this war. It was a revolution of the politicians, not the people.
Trenches are here.
Davis launched upon a long and solemn review of the South's plight, insisting that an army could be rallied to fight in the Vance was impressed by the president's determination, but was relieved when Breckinridge broke the sad silence that followed. Don't think we are dealing candidly with him. Our hopes of accomplishing what you set forth are so remote and uncertain. About this time, a courier tracked down the fleeing Davis with a telegraphed appeal from Concord, where the president and 9 others slept.